Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing Bricky to Me on the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is a 2D puzzle platformer with some roguelite elements, and I would even call it possibly a micro roguelite. It was released on July 21st of 2022, and it currently sells on the Nintendo Switch eShop for only $3.99. The game is published by Cubite Interactive, and it has a download size of only 62 megabytes. Now, can this extremely budget indie title deliver a satisfying experience? That's what we're going to figure out in today's review. And as we jump into that, just remember that if you are liking the content, one of the best ways to help support the channel is to hit that like button. So today we're jumping straight into the gameplay because this game really doesn't present any form of storyline. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the main type of gameplay here is that of a puzzle platformer with some very light combat integrated. At the beginning of each run in this game, you're going to be getting an assortment of 30 random rooms. Your basic goal here should be to make it through each one of the 30 rooms, all the while collecting as many resources as possible. Now, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to view your overall progression towards the end of a run. And each indication of a money sign is where you'll be returning to the shop area where you'll be able to purchase upgrades. Now, these upgrades are presented in only two forms. You can buy health potions to replenish missing hearts, or you can buy a blue potion, which will allow you to shrink down and attain otherwise unattainable areas. You can also speak to your cat and exchange for one of your hearts, obtain their help till the next checkpoint. Now, the assistance of the cat is another very important element to have because they will indicate hidden areas and also activate teleportation in certain rooms. The ultimate goal, however, is to make sure that you've collected a minimum of 4 blue coins by the time you hit the checkpoint indicated by a small arcade machine. If you've collected 4 blue coins at this point, you'll be able to forge a key to open up the boss room. If unfortunately at this point you haven't yet collected 4 blue coins, well, you unfortunately have to restart your run from the beginning. However, you'll be able to conserve the resources you've gathered so far in hopes that the next time you reach this checkpoint, you do have the required 4 blue coins. It's important to note that if you die at any moment, either from the loss of hearts or hitting some spikes, which is an auto death, you unfortunately restart everything from the beginning and lose all of your resources. Now, restarting your run at least once through playthrough is pretty much required, because as you start your initial run, since you won't be able to purchase any upgrades, you often won't be able to access the resources and collect the coins you need. However, during that second playthrough, as long as you always conserve the upgrades of having your blue potion active and the cat assisting you, normally you'll always be able to collect the blue coins you require. Now, you also have to collect regular coins during your runs, which will allow you to actually purchase the potions you need. Now, those regular coins can be found randomly throughout the rooms, or by destroying all the enemies present in any particular room, which will give you a fish token. The next time you reach a shop area, 2 fish tokens can be exchanged for a regular coin. But ultimately, that is the complete gameplay loop here. Collect resources, open the boss room, and repeat this 3 times successfully, and you've reached the end of the game. Now, the boss rooms themselves were an interesting and unexpected payoff that put a grin on my face, that I won't spoil in this review. It wasn't a crazy wow moment, but rather one that just was an interesting and funny surprise. Now, I have to admit, at first I was extremely addicted to this game and pleasantly surprised. However, after successfully completing the game, which took about 3 to 4 hours, I quickly realized that there was very little replay value here. Now, one of the main reasons there's limited replay value here is that the game itself only has 60 possible rooms to present to you. However, in reality, I would say that number is closer to 30 or 40 rooms, since many rooms are mirror versions of others. Also, the enemy type variety is very low, with only 2 types of enemies without counting the bosses. And as I presented earlier, there's only one real type of upgrade, which is the blue potion that allows you to shrink down, so the game mechanics are once again pretty limited. Now, what this leads to is the game is extremely addictive till you manage to finish it once. However, once you've finished it, there's very little reason to play it again because you've pretty much seen everything the game has to offer you. However, at the same time, I do want to remind you that this is only a $4 game and offering what I would say is 3 to 5 hours of gameplay for most players for a $4 price point is actually not that bad of an offering. However, I do feel like it's a slightly missed opportunity because the basic concept here is extremely interesting, and if we could add a little bit more variation here, we could get an even better game. Now if we move on to the controls. Control-wise, this game has very simple controls. You can move your character either with the left joystick or the D-pad. Once again, something I always appreciate for 2D games. Following that, you have your jump button, which is the B button. You have the Y button, which will throw your boomerang. Your A button will be your interaction button, either with the cat or with different switches. And lastly, when you have your blue potion equipped, the X button will allow you to change size. Now, I have to say that overall, I was very impressed with the responsiveness of the controls in this game. Often these games have very floaty controls where your character feels like it has no weight, but in this case they're fairly crisp, letting you feel like you have a decent control over your character. Now there's not much more to say about the controls here, other than the fact, as I said, they were very satisfying. Now we move on to the graphics and sound. Now this game has a very simple pixel art style at its base, but you know what, it worked perfectly for me, especially given the overall simplicity of the concept. The visual concept also, where the rooms sort of decompose themselves as you move from right to left, was actually very interesting, although it took a little while to get used to. However, to me, it really communicated the idea of the fluidity of these rooms and how the maze rebuilds itself each and every time. However, I will admit I would have liked a little bit more variety in the actual assets used to create these rooms, like some more color variation or even the types of bricks used from time to time. Now if we move on to the sound, well, this is where probably the game will be most repetitive because there is one single track for the whole game. And the loop itself is fairly short. Now the track isn't bad, it is okay, it gives a decent ambience. It's just by the end of 3 or 4 hours when you've heard it on repeat for that whole time, a little bit of variety would have been appreciated. Although in the end, let's not forget this is a $4 budget game, but the graphics and sound are interesting, but nothing to write home about. Now we get to the verdict. And if this is one of the first reviews of mine you're watching, my full review scale is available down below. Now before I give the scoring to this game, I just want you to remember that price point is a very important factor for me. And in this case of Bricky to me on the Nintendo Switch, I'm actually going to be giving it a 7, putting it at the low end of a good game. Now in the end, I settled on this score because, as I mentioned, when I started playing this game, I was extremely addicted to it. Until I actually completed it, I could hardly put it down. The downside to that, however, is that happened after only about 3 or 4 hours of gameplay. However, when I look back at it, paying $4 for 3 or 4 hours of gameplay, which comes out to about $1 an hour, is actually a pretty decent deal. I mean, the basic concept behind the game is an extremely interesting one. And personally, I would have preferred to pay more expensive for this game and had a much wider variety of rooms, enemies, and assets, and overall be able to score this game even higher. But as it stands now, at a $4 one and done game, it's actually, in my opinion, a pretty good offering. So now I want to hear from all of you. Are you going to be picking up Bricky to Me on the Nintendo Switch? And on the way out, don't forget that if you did like the content, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and click on the notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.